Victor Wembanyama is a player we've never seen before, but does he actually have the potential to be the greatest ever? Today we're going to find out, as we'll be simulating the rest of his career to see how many championships he can win. And if he can secure more than the 6 held by the legendary Michael Jordan, it'll cement himself as the greatest player of all time. So with all that being said, let's see if he actually pulls it off, all starting with the 2025 season, which will be Wemby's second in the NBA. And it would be headlined by the fact that he would be up to almost 27 points and 13 rebounds per game. And when you combine it with his usual outstanding defense, he would be winning the first of what's probably going to be many Defensive Player of the Year awards. There is a very good chance that by the end of this, he will have the most all time. And speaking of the most all-time, there's several records that Wemby will probably break during his time in the NBA, including the all-time scoring record held by LeBron James, who in this universe retired with 42,506 under his belt. So keep that in mind as a little bit of a side quest as Wemby tries to achieve his main goal of passing up MJ's 6 titles. And it just so happens that he would be getting closer to said goal as he would finally be making his playoff debut. And as he's done for his entire professional career, he would live up to everyone's lofty expectations, defeating Anthony Edwards and his Timberwolves in the first round, as well as the former champion Denver Nuggets led by Jokic in the second. So with such a dominant postseason run to this point, you gotta think that it's only a matter of time until Wemby wins a championship of his own. But before we see if he actually does, you gotta remember that every all-time great in the history of the NBA has ran into a team that would serve as a roadblock to their first championship, and Wemby is going to be no different. As his last opponent, standing in his way of a trip to the finals would be the Memphis Grizzlies led by the athletic Ja Morant, who would show no fear towards Wemby's 7'5" frame, as he would go into Wemby's house and take the first 2 games of the series to start the conference finals off. And while Wemby would show some serious improvement in the following 3 games to not only erase that lead, but take it over, now up 3-2, he would promptly blow Game 6 and Game 7 to fall short at the hands of John the Grizzlies, who will be moving on to the NBA Finals. Obviously a disappointing ending, but Wemby, he will be back. Because now entering 2026, he would get one step closer to his first title, but not necessarily in the way you may expect. Because while he would be up to almost 29 points per game and finish as the Defensive Player of the Year for a second time in a row, he would fall short again in the postseason, this time to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and his Oklahoma City Thunder. But while none of this is ideal on the surface, it may actually wind up being a blessing in disguise. You gotta remember, Jordan had Pippen, LeBron had Kyrie, and very fittingly, Spurs legend Tim Duncan had Tony Parker. So it's only right that Wemby would be getting a sidekick of his own. As entering the 2027 season, the Spurs would be signing Texas native De'Aaron Fox to a max contract to be Wemby's co-star. And as a result, the Spurs would have their best season yet, finishing the year with a 60-22 record thanks to the elite performance and partnership of Wemby and Fox, which would also bring them into the spotlight as the NBA's best team, as well as award them with plenty of individual accolades, starting with Victor Wembanyama finishing the year as the league's most valuable player. There's a lot to cover here. First off, Wemby with his first MVP. It was only a matter of time. Stephon Castle as the backup to De'Aaron Fox, 6th Man of the Year. So the Spurs kind of got their Manu. And there he is again, Wemby with the Defensive Player of the Year. It's his 3rd in a row. And with the Spurs now truly in championship contention, it should be no surprise that in the playoffs, Wemby would get his revenge on OKC in the first round, eliminate Jokic in Denver for the second time in the second, finally get over the hump in the conference finals by winning the Battle of Texas over the Rockets. Which means that in year number 4, and only at the age of 24, Victor Wembanyama would be heading to the Big Apple for the NBA Finals with a chance to win his first title. I'm on my Mike Breen, I'm gonna have to put my bias aside, but yeah, it's going to be Jalen Brunson and Villanova up against Wemby and the Spurs. And before we kick off these NBA Finals, it's worth mentioning that while Wemby is definitely the favorite, the NBA is absolutely loaded with talent. And it would be best illustrated by the fact that while Wemby and Fox would be taking the first game of the series, Brunson and the Knicks would respond with a win in Game 2 and Game 3. But that's not to say that the Spurs should panic, because while they would find themselves in a 2-1 hole, it would be Wemby bringing them right back up to the surface, tying it up in New York at 2 wins apiece. But maybe most encouraging for Wemby would be history itself. Because if we look back all the way to 1999, Wemby's predecessor Tim Duncan also found himself in the NBA Finals against the Knicks, where he would walk away as a first-time champion. So it's only right that nearly 20 years later, we would see Wemby do the exact same, taking over in Game 5 to go up 3-2, and eventually sealing the deal in the world's most famous arena to win his first NBA championship.
This year's Bill Russell Finals MVP goes to Victor Wembanyama.
So now with one title under his belt, the question is, how many titles can Wemby finish with? And will it be more than the legendary 6 held by Michael Jordan? There's only one way to find out, and Wemby's going to take some punches, but for now, let's speed up all the way to the 2028 NBA Finals, where the Spurs will have a chance to defend their title, as they're now charging into Cleveland for a duel with the Cavaliers. They don't have a chip yet in this universe, so you know they're gonna come with the heat. And on paper, this Cavs team definitely has what it takes to send Wemby and the Spurs home, as they're led by Donovan Mitchell, who's a future Hall of Famer, as well as defensive genius Evan Mobley. And we can't forget about the other 2 all-star level players that they have in Darius Garland and Jared Allen. But while top to bottom they may have the better roster, the Spurs have the best player in the entire league, as Wemby to this point has won his 2nd MVP, as well as his 5th straight Defensive Player of the Year, which is in fact an NBA record. So while this one would go to Game 7, it would eventually end off as a pretty convincing win for the Spurs, now giving Wemby his 2nd straight NBA championship. And with 2 in a row, you already know that he's going to try to bring San Antonio their 3rd straight. Because in the 2029 season, he'd be heading right back to the finals, where he'd be heading all the way up north to challenge the Toronto Raptors, who barely made it to the finals as they're only the 7th seed in the East. But standing on the other side would be a very interesting opponent, someone who's already an NBA champion and has plenty of experience in high-pressure moments. That being Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, the best possible player to take the Spurs down, and someone who you'll see very shortly push Wemby to his limits. I'm not too sure how this team is only a 7th seed. They have Scotty Barnes, they have Giannis. Either way, whatever their seed is, they're in the finals. It's going to be a tough matchup for Wemby. And if you're still not convinced on how misleadingly good this team is, the now 3-time league MVP would very quickly be staring down elimination, now falling behind 3-2 at the hands of Giannis and the Raptors. So that means that in order to keep the three-peat dream alive, Wemby will have to go into Toronto and take Game 6 to force 7. Although with one of the NBA's loudest crowds, as well as the usual hostility of the NBA Finals, it's not going to be easy, especially when you consider that the Spurs would barely be holding on to a 4-point lead with just under 3 minutes to play. And it's an unfamiliar situation for Wemby since he's mostly just demolished teams for the past couple years. But this time it's completely different. He has to make a 3-2 comeback, there's a former champion on the other side, and he's going to be tested in the clutch. Here we go, NBA Finals Game 6, San Antonio, Wemby trying to force Game 7. Toronto, if they can come back from a 4-point deficit, they'll be walking away as champions. And Giannis will have his 2nd of his career. He gets the steal. Here we go. Giannis on the fast break. Wemby with the defense. Wemby stops the fast break by himself. Giannis misses the layup. Fantastic defense by Wemby. Wemby on the break. He slows it down over to Fox. Fox looks like he's about to throw it down to Wemby, being guarded by Scotty Barnes. That is a mismatch. He gets the putback. I don't know how he missed that original shot. San Antonio, all they have to do is hold on to a 6-point lead. And they are going to Game 7. Fantastic steal. Wemby with the defense, the 5-time Defensive Player of the Year. And it's actually 5 times in a row. Here we go, De'Aaron with the short shot over Giannis. What kind of shot was that? It worked out. The 2K sim, it's the gift that keeps on giving with the weird shots. Here we go. Great defense by Giannis. Or great defense by Wemby on Giannis. Devin Vassell getting his revenge on the Spurs with the 3. Looks like Wemby might be posting up. Yup, they pass it over to him. Not a post-up though, just the isolation. Good defense by Giannis. And Wemby throws it away right to Scotty Barnes. Emmanuel quickly on the break. Emmanuel quickly with the step back jumper in the mid-range. It's off, rebounded by Wemby. This game could still go either way. 1:40 left. De'Aaron on the fast break, slows it down. Wemby has a mismatch. He has Emmanuel quickly on him. Emmanuel quickly is 6'2". Wemby is 9 feet tall. The hook shot, no dribble, it's in. If San Antonio gets a stop here, this might be it. Here we go. Giannis on the ISO, behind the back, driving with the left. Bullies, absolutely bullies Wemby out the way. But it looks like Wemby's gonna try to get him right back. Here we go. Wemby on the ISO, or he's getting the screen from Sohan. Wemby driving right, the pull-up. Oh my God, that's probably gonna do it. Wemby with the fading three. If San Antonio gets a stop here, we're going to game 7. And the dream, the three-peat, it's still alive. Great defense by Wemby, makes Giannis give it up. Devin Vassell, he's trying to get his revenge on San Antonio. Back-to-back fading threes by both teams. Here we go. San Antonio's running the same play as last time. Will Wemby fade away again? The backdoor pass, the backdoor cut, the pass by Wemby. Who just dunked it? I didn't even see. Toronto called a timeout, inbounded the ball, wasted a second, and called the second timeout. So we'll see what play they draw up. They kind of have to shoot a three. Although when your best player is Giannis, that's probably... Emmanuel quickly is going to fire it. It's off. Rebounded by Wemby. Wemby on the break. Over to Sohan, over to Fox. Fox almost turns it over. Oh my God, what is happening right now? Here we go. San Antonio is a bucket away from icing this one. And Wemby has a mismatch in the paint. Will they get it to him? 5 seconds left on the clock. Josh Green with the ball. Josh Green with the dagger. It's in. We're going to game 7. And just like that, Wemby and the Spurs would be preparing for a flight back home for the season's final game. After some clutch heroics from their leader, they lived to see another day, and with all the momentum in the world, they would keep it up and get the job done. As after one last performance, fitting for a now 3-time MVP, where he would lead his team to a 40-point lead and cap it off with one last signature shot, they got blown out in Game 7. Wemby with a one-legged shot. This one would be concluding with Victor Wembanyama's 3rd straight NBA championship, vaulting the Spurs back into Dynasty form and solidifying himself as one of the greatest players ever, only at the age of 25. And while it remains to be seen where he'll rank at the end of his career, he would have another chance at a title, as he would be going to a 4th straight finals in 2030, this time against the Brooklyn Nets, who somewhere along the way picked up Luka Doncic, who was actually able to win the MVP this year. Which makes it even more impressive that Wemby would be storming his way to his 4th straight championship, making it the first time a team has done that since the 1960s, so it's safe to say that Wemby has just pulled off one of the greatest achievements in the history of the NBA. And let's take an opportunity to mention that with the 4 chips, he also has 3 regular season MVPs and a record 6 Defensive Player of the Year awards, all of which came consecutively. So when you top it off with the fact that LeBron's scoring record is also within reach, he has a really good chance to retire as the greatest of all time by far. But as is the case with all dynasties, one day it will eventually come to an end. It's just a matter of when. So keep that in mind as we go through the 2031 season, and let's see how long this Spurs run will really last. Fortunately for the Spurs and Wemby, though, he wouldn't be missing a beat, winning yet another Defensive Player of the Year to add to his resume, which will be crucial entering the Western Conference Finals against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the OKC Thunder. And even more crucial when you learn that this one is going to Game 7. But before we see how it turns out, let's just mention that while Wemby's still in the middle of his prime, De'Aaron Fox is on the wrong side of 30, which may explain why their usual trip to the finals might be in danger. Because with both teams separated by just 2 points entering the final few minutes of Game 7, it's clear the Spurs' run is in some serious jeopardy. They've won 4 titles straight, but this will be their toughest test yet, and it'll be up to Wemby and Fox collectively to keep their 5-peat dreams alive. Here we go, Western Conference Finals Game 7, Powell with the ball. We're very far into the future. Sohan with the steal. Sohan slowing it down, passing it over to Fox. Fox with the screen from Wemby, wide open behind the screen. It's good. San Antonio has the lead. Shai, if you remember earlier, eliminated Wemby in like Wemby's 3rd season, but then Wemby started to win a bunch bunch of championships. So Wemby kind of got the last lap. Good defense in the lane. Here we go. Wemby trying to complete the comeback. Almost a backcourt, arguably a backcourt. Fox with the ball. Fox in the mid-range, backing it out. Looks like they're going to post up Wemby. I'm not too sure who's guarding him. Again, we're very far into the future. And one. Huge and one by Wemby. He made the free throw. San Antonio is up by 4. Here we go. Shea with the ball. Shea over to Peterson again. Peterson with the screen by Shea, almost pops a 3. 3 seconds left on the shot clock. Shea right into Wemby's chest. He draws the foul. And Shea, as you would expect, goes to the line, makes both. 90% coming in handy. 2-point game, 95-93. Fox with the ball. Good defense by Shea on Fox. The handoff to Wemby. Wemby at the 3-point line, driving in the post up, fakes the post up. Not too sure what he's doing. Over to Patrick Williams. Patrick Williams, a new addition to the team, I think. He's going to have to make something out of nothing. 1 second left. He's going to have to chuck it. It's off. OKC still in it. It's only a 2-point game. 1:30 left. Jalen Williams with the ball. Over to Shea. Shea driving left. In the lane. At the free throw line. Peterson's going to launch it. It rims out. It was halfway down. Wemby with the ball. Wemby on the break. Over to Fox. He's going to slow it down. Here we go. Fox driving. The long 2 contested over the big man. It doesn't matter. He is getting old. He's on the wrong side of 30, but it's still working out. San Antonio, if they can hold on for 1 more minute, they're going to the finals against Luka. OKC with the lob. I didn't expect that. That was kind of out of nowhere. Shout out to them. Here we go. 1 minute left officially. Here we go. They're running a pick and roll. Wemby fakes a screen. He slips. He goes into the post. Wemby's getting doubled, but it's kind of weak double. Wow, man, I screwed that up. He took the shot anyways, despite kind of being doubled. They faked the double team. I don't even know what to call it. Here we go. Shea driving to the basket. Forgot how to speak English. Here we go. Hopefully I remember now. Jalen Williams with the layup. He ties it up. San Antonio just called the timeout. Here we go. Wemby on the ISO. They flatten it out. Driving left. The short jumper. It's good. San Antonio with a 2-point lead. They just called another timeout, so let's see what they drew up. It might just be to give Shea the ball and get out the way. The pivot. The floater. It's good. We're tied. 20 seconds left. San Antonio just called a timeout. Will they inbound it to Fox? They do. Wemby was calling for it on the inbound. Will Wemby get a touch? 16 seconds left on the clock. 14, 13. Fox with the ball, getting the screen by Wemby. He fakes the screen. It looks like he's going to post up. Fox throws it away. No timeouts left for OKC. 3, 2, 1. OKC takes the lead. 1.4 seconds left. De'Aaron Fox with an all-time blunder, potentially. No more timeouts left for San Antonio. They just called their last. They throw it into Fox from half. It's off. OKC wins. So just like that, the Spurs have hit a major wall with both Wemby and Fox not stepping up enough to get the team back to the finals. And with Shea eventually going on to win the championship in not just 2031, but also 2032 to go back-to-back, the Spurs' seat at the top of the NBA is in some serious jeopardy. And Wemby's career is about to go on a serious roller coaster. So let's just keep it short. 2033 would see Wemby win his 5th MVP, now just 1 shy from Kareem's record of 6. But De'Aaron Fox, now at the age of 34, would be in the middle of his decline. De'Aaron Fox is 34 years old. He's going to the Hall of Fame for sure. 4 championships is all-time status, but the last couple years, all of his stats have been going down little by little. So while the Spurs would bounce back and win the championship anyways,
San Antonio is back on top once again.
It would all come crashing down immediately in 2034. As while Wemby would have his best individual season to tie up Kareem for the MVP record, he would be swept in the playoffs for the first time at the hands of the Houston Rockets. Wemby's best season is coming to probably the worst possible end. And the unpredictability of Wemby's career would continue, as De'Aaron Fox would be retiring, now lowering Wemby's chances at a title on paper dramatically, which would wind up not being too much of a problem, as even without a true co-star, Wemby would step it up, winning his 7th MVP to break the record, but also going into Brooklyn to face Luka Doncic for the 2nd time, where Wemby would keep him ringless to win his 6th title just when it was looking rough. which means that despite the ups and downs of the last few years, Wemby is now tied up with MJ at 6 titles apiece. And it would be a mistake not to update you on the overall look of his trophy room, which now includes his 7 regular season MVPs, 9 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and a scoring average just under 28 points per game, which will be helpful as he chases LeBron's scoring record. But to focus back on Wemby's pursuit of his 7th title, he would now be faced with his toughest challenge yet, as he wouldn't return to the NBA Finals all the way until 2038, where he'd be at a whopping 34 years old. So his best years are basically completely behind him. And if that already wasn't challenging enough, his chance to pass up Jordan would be against MJ's Chicago Bulls, which would make for a hostile visiting environment. And to really top it all off, standing on the other side would be another multiple-time champion from the past, and it just so happens to be someone who's taken him down multiple times before. Shai and Wemby have gone back and forth over the years, but this will probably be the last time. Shai is almost 40, Wemby's getting up there too. As a side note, shout out to Cade Cunningham, who's still going strong, but yeah, this will probably be it. And this one is especially important as Wemby, just like MJ, has not lost in the finals in all 6 of his appearances. But considering his age, as well as the 2 veteran stars on the other side, there's no guarantee that sticks. Because while Wemby would eventually go up 3-2 in the series and head into San Antonio to close it out, Shai and Cade would dice up his teammates from all over the floor to force Game 7, which just so happens to be played on the road in Chicago. And as is the case with any 7-game series, no team will let up. Every star in each team knows that their time in the NBA is coming to an end, and because of that, we would see only a 4-point lead for Wemby and the Spurs with just over 4 minutes to play. And as one final reminder, considering his age, he might not have many trips to the finals left. So if he wants to pass up Jordan, it's best he does it now. Here we go, NBA Finals Game 7, 4 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock. San Antonio is up by 4. Webber with the ball, over to Castle. Castle gets Shai in the air and the layup's in. It's a 6-point game for San Antonio. If they hold on, which there is plenty of time for them to not hold on, they're walking away as champions again, and Wemby will have 7 to beat out Michael Jordan. Cade misses a shot. Here we go, Jeremy Sohan with the ball. He's been on the team this whole time. Shout out to him for the loyalty. I'm looking at you, Tony Parker. Why did you go to Charlotte? You got put on a Celtic Shaq edit for that one. You should have just stayed in San Antonio. Anyways, I went on a tangent for no reason. Here we go. Here's Sohan with the fading 3. Wemby's right there for the board, but it doesn't matter. San Antonio looks like they're running away with it. The Bulls inbound it into Shai. Here we go. Does he have anything left? He's 38 years old. Shai with the behind the back, the crossover. He's going to pull up from deep. It's off. He doesn't get to his patented mid-range. He just launches it from downtown. It didn't work out. Castle with the ball. San Antonio is running away with it. They have so much momentum. Here we go. Castle with the ball. Another loyal Spur. Down to Wemby in the paint, being guarded by Shai. He dunks all over him. And Wemby is hype. How could he not be? San Antonio is on a run. 11-point game with 3 minutes left. I'm probably going to cut out the last couple seconds because San Antonio just fouled like 3 times. It was ridiculous. Nobody's trying to watch that. Bryant's going to launch it. It's in. It's not Cade. It's not Shai, but he is the one to stop the San Antonio run. Castle with the ball. Castle, like I said, very loyal to the Spurs. Down to Wemby in the lane. No dribble. Catch, he puts it up, it's in, it's 11 points. Cade with the ball, being guarded by somebody. We are so far into the future. Shai on the post-up, being guarded by Castle. Shai with a left-handed shot, he gets on the board. Right now, though, it's not looking good for Chicago. And when Wemby's handling the ball, you know something good is probably going to happen. I just jinxed it. The door is still open for Chicago, especially if they shoot a 3. Here we go, over to Shai. Will he launch another one? Shai driving left into the mid-range, floater range, but he draws the foul. First one's in, second one is also in. It's a 7-point game. Chicago can still make a comeback, but ultimately it wouldn't have to get to that point, as the league's best player would be solidifying his spot as the greatest of all time. Here we go, Wemby with the ball. Wemby driving on Sarr. He gets past his fellow Frenchman to the lane, and one. That might be it. Which means that in MJ's gym, Wemby is winning Game 7 to walk away with his 7th championship. And if you're still not convinced he's the GOAT, he would return to the finals for one last time in 2040, where he'd be heading to New York, the place where his title runs all started, to win his 8th and final title. which means the only thing left for Wemby to accomplish is to break LeBron's scoring record, which just so happens to be right around the corner, as about halfway through the 2041 season, he'd be knocking on LeBron's door. Wemby is 5 points away from LeBron's scoring record. Unless there's some kind of tragic performance, he's going to break it in the next game. And it's only right that 18 years after he was drafted, Wemby would be making a regular Tuesday evening extraordinary by finishing the job in front of his home fans. Wemby is one bucket away from basketball immortality. Here we go. Castle with the ball, his longtime teammate, the pass down, the slam, and that'll do it.
The all-time record for scoring is his alone.
Which means that Wemby has now taken down both MJ and LeBron's most iconic records, making him the greatest of all time. But how large is the gap between himself and the other two? Well, after a few more years of playing, we would find out for sure. As in 2046, after 21 years in the league, he'd be officially retiring from the NBA, with his name all over the record books. Wemby is retiring with over 50,000 points scored, obviously number one all time. He completely shattered LeBron's record. Field goals made, number one. Three-pointers made, number one. Blocks, obviously number one. He's the only player with over 4,000. And we can't forget about his final total of 14 Defensive Player of the Year awards to break the previous record of 4, and his 13 MVPs, which breaks Kareem's record of 6. Which means that in the end, Victor Wembanyama would be walking away as the NBA's ultimate story of triumph and the greatest player of all time by far.